No, you don't want to think about it, do you?
By the way, if anybody feels like they want to send a good message, I have a friend who has family in Ukraine. Every time they get thrilled about the fact that other people care. So,
Oh, all right. I'll think of someone who might.
Okay, we live, councillors.
Oh, we live?
Thank you.
Well, councillors, this is the ordinary council meeting of Glamorgan Spring Bay Council, 24 May 2022, 2 p.m. I declare the meeting open. The Glamorgan Spring Bay Council acknowledges the traditional owners of our region and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. Now, I think we have a full quota where all councillors are present and there are no apologies. Are there any late reports, General Manager?
No late reports.
I request elected members to indicate whether they have any interest, personal or via a close associate, as defined in Section 49 of the Local Government Act 1993, or any conflict as described in Council's Code of Conduct for councillors in any item included in the agenda.
8.3.
8.3, Councillor Simons. Thank you very much for that.
4.2. 4.2.
Thank you, Councillor Browning. Anyone else? Now, item 2, confirmation of minutes. Can I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Robinson.
that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on 26th of April 2022 at 2 p.m. be confirmed as a true and correct record.
Seconder? Deputy Mayor Woods, thank you. Any discussion? I put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 2.2, date and purpose of workshops held. There was a workshop held 10th of May 2022. Can I have a motion?
I'll move.
Thank you.
I'll move that council notes notes the information.
Can I have a seconder? Councillor Browning. Any discussion? I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise their hand. I declare the motion carried unanimously. Workshop 17 May 2022. Can I have a motion? Thank you very much,
Thank
Deputy Mayor
you. I'll
Woods.
move that council notes the information. Seconded.
Thank you very much, Councillor Arnold. Any discussion?
Thank you. If I may.
Yes.
Yes, in the apologies, I would like it noted, if I may, that I wasn't available to attend that workshop, which I really wanted to, but for personal reasons, I was unable to attend.
Is everyone content that that amendment occurred to the notation? The amended notation, I put the motion. All those in favour? Against? I declare the motion carried unanimously. Next item 2.3, Municipal Emergency Management Committee meeting minutes. Can I have a motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Marini.
The minutes of the Glamorgan Spring Bay Municipal Emergency Management Committee meeting held on the 16th of March 2022 be received and noted.
Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Arnold. Is there any discussion? Well, I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise their hand. I declare the motion carried unanimously. Public question time. Are there any questions on notice, General Manager?
No questions on notice, Mr. Mayor.
What about questions without notice, General Manager?
No questions without notice.
Thank you very much for that. Now, on page 14 of the agenda, there are responses in the agenda to previous questions without notice taken on notice 26 April 2022. I don't propose to read them out. They're available for everyone to read on the published agenda. Apart from the fact that for everyone to note, there are community connect sessions, that is for council ratepayers to come along and talk to councillors on the 8th and 9th of June. The details are on the website. Please come along if you want.
Can I just add to that,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor? So there is a change. You would have noticed to the times for two of those meetings, Community Connect sessions. So we are in essence trialing a nighttime session or evening session for both Bishano and Tribunna. We have had some feedback through previous Community Connects. You'll be aware that the daytime sessions weren't suitable to everyone. So we will just see what happens in terms of attendance at the evening sessions in Bishano and Tribunna and see if there is an increase in the attendance.
Thank you very much, General Manager. Now, the next item in the agenda is on page 17, Planning Authority section. Can I have a motion? Thank you very much, Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move that council now acts as a planning authority at 2:07 PM.
Is there a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Browning. Is there any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise their hand. Against, I declare the motion carried unanimously. Item 4.1 is visitor accommodation, 18 Tasman Highway, Bishano. On my little page. Can I have a motion, please?
Page 33.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Rennie.
I move that pursuant to section 57 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 and the Tasmanian Planning Scheme, Glamorgan Spring Bay, DA 2021/317 at 18 Tasman Highway, Bishano, certificate of title or CT 28091/2 be refused for the following reasons. The proposal does not meet the requirements of clause 8.3.2 P1 in that it is not compatible with the character and use of the area, will result in an unreasonable loss of amenity having regard to privacy of adjoining properties, and will not retain the primary residential function of the area. Point 2, the proposal does not meet the requirements of clause 8.5.1 P2 in that it will result in an unreasonable loss of amenity having regard to visual impacts by the apparent scale, bulk, or proportions of the buildings. Point 3, the proposal does not meet the requirements of clause 8.5.1 P5 in that the waste storage area located on the front boundary has not been located or screened to minimise its impact on views into the site from the road. Point 4, the proposal does not meet the requirements of clause C2.6.2 P1 of the Parking and Sustainable Transport Code, as it has not been demonstrated that the proposal will provide convenient, safe and efficient parking related to vehicle and pedestrian safety and the nature of the traffic in the surrounding area. And the final point, the proposal does not meet the requirements of clause C3.5.1 P1 of the Road and Railway Assets Code in that the driveway access from the highway does not meet the minimum requirements and the proposal has not demonstrated that the new vehicle crossing and associated vehicle movements will not have an adverse effect on the safety and efficiency of the road network.
Councillor Brenny, do you wish to, well, first of all, is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Robinson. Councillor Brenny, do you wish to speak to your motion or preserve your right?
There is adequate coverage of the reasons for my motion in relation to this in the report, and it is fairly clear as to what the shortcomings of this development application are. Thank you.
Does anyone want to speak against the motion? Are there any other speakers in favour of the motion?
Just
Yes.
briefly through you, Mayor, just agreeing with what Councillor Breeny said, the report that's been compiled by council staff was very comprehensive and it addressed many of the concerns of the representatives that referred to planning scheme digressions. So I'll be obviously supporting this motion.
Any other speakers? Well, I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise the right hand. Against? I declare the motion carried unanimously. Item 4.2. Thank you, Councillor Browning. All right, 14635 Tasman Highway, Swansea. Yes, Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move that pursuant to section 57 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 and the Glamorgan Spring Bay Interim Planning Scheme 2015 SA 2021/03 at 14635 Tasman Highway, Swansea be refused, or CT 178275/1 be refused for the following reasons. Point 1, the proposal does not meet the requirements of clause 26.5.1 P1 in that it has not demonstrated that it will provide safe vehicular access from the road, does not prevent further fragmentation and fettering of rural resource land, and is not provided for sustainable commercial operation of the land by a business plan. Point 2, the proposal does not meet the requirements of E5.6.2 in that it has not demonstrated that the subdivision will not unreasonably impact on the safety and efficiency of the road. Point 3, the proposal does not meet the requirements of E10.8.1 in that it has not demonstrated how the impacts on moderate and high biodiversity values will be minimised, mitigated and protected. And final point, the proposal does not meet the requirements of E14.7.3 in that it has not demonstrated that works will not have an unreasonable adverse effect on the scenic landscape corridor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Arnold. I see Councillor Churchill seconding that motion. Councillor Arnold, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, not at all, Mayor. Thank you. I think the planners have done a particularly good job of this report, and the subsequent recommendation from them to refuse really has to be supported. Thank you.
Councillor Churchill, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I just want to thank our planner, our senior planner, for this report. I think it's very well done, and the recommendation contains everything that's pertinent quite concisely. Thank you for the report.
Does anyone wish to speak either for or against the motion? Yes, Deputy Mayor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. I've just got to try and find it. If you don't mind bearing with me for
We'll
a
bear with you.
second. Not necessarily for or against, it's just a clarification of a concern within the representations. So I'll try and read this without
Take
naming
your time,
names
there's
as
not a
such.
rush.
There's an there was an NRE investigation leader who refutes the allegation of an eagle's nest and tree on the properties, or one of the properties. We're going to, they did actually address the false and misleading information and allegations which was reported in the Mercury online this morning. So this here, it says, in relation to wildlife ranges investigations, a complaint alleging that a tree containing an eagle's nest had been burnt on the property at 14635 Tasman Highway, Swansea. And as discussed on our phone conversation, there is no evidence to substantiate this allegation, and as such, the investigation is now closed. I just wanted to sort of bring that to people's attention in regards to the to the allegations with regards to an eagle's nest within the representations.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Woods. That's Councillor Brennan.
Excuse me, Mayor, through you, could I ask the Deputy Mayor, who made allegations?
Well, there was within the report, and it's quite convoluted to try and find it now, to be quite honest. There was talk about
Deputy
eagle's
Mayor,
nest.
before you go ahead, is the person making the allegation a matter of public record, or is it something?
Well, it is
private
now,
that
it's
comes-
because it's in the Mercury.
And your source comes from the Mercury?
No,
I think it ought only to come from the Mercury. If it came from council, then it's something I don't know whether we ought to publish.
Through you, Mayor, I think it was mentioned by one of the representatives that it wasn't a definite allegation. It was just I suppose it was alleged that may have happened. And it was mentioned by one of the representatives, you're correct. Yeah.
Councillor Brady?
Can I make a comment in relation to this? My understanding of what has occurred is that on the Natural Values Atlas, that is the NRE map which shows threatened species, aka a wedge-tailed eagle sightings and locations and nests. Some time ago, a nest was shown on the Natural Values Atlas, which was located, I think, within this development proposal. The person who made that observation has been recognised by the Department of Natural Resource and Environment as a person who is validly able to place that sighting on the Natural Values Atlas. There can be no certainty as to what has happened to that nest, but it no longer exists. Nobody witnessed anything that was going on, and it is practically irrelevant except for one thing. There is a requirement under law that any sighting of a nest of this nature on the Natural Values Atlas, whether the nest has been removed or not, remains on the Natural Values Atlas as a valid site. In other words, whether the tree has been removed or not, and I certainly am not making any comment about that. People can say what they like. If they have proof, it's fine, but if they don't have any proof, there's no point. But the fact is that there was a notation on the Natural Values Atlas of a wedge-tailed eagle's nest on this site, and that would, if that is the case, preclude any development within sightline of a kilometre, I think, and within a distance of 500 metres anyway.
Thank you. Councillor Salmons, you wish to say something?
No, thank you. That's answered my question.
Anyone wish to make any comment further? Well, if that's the case, I put the motion that the application be refused for the reasons set forth by the proposal. All those in favour? Against? I declare the matter carried unanimously by the councillors in the room. Could you bring Councillor Browning in? Councillor Browning, having absented herself from this meeting whilst this matter has been dealt with. Councillor Browning, the motion's recommendation set forth in the minutes was adopted and passed unanimously. Now, under section 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations, I declare that the council no longer acts as a planning authority under the provision of the Land Use and Planning Approvals Act. Can I have a motion, please? 2:20 p.m. Councillor Robinson.
That council no longer acts as a planning authority at 2:20 p.m.
Can I have a second? Councillor Simons. I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise their hand. Against, I declare the motion carried unanimously. On page 52 of the agenda, item 5, financial reports. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Churchill.
I move that council receives and notes the financial reports as attached to the report for the period ended 30th of April 2022.
Can I have a seconder? Councillor Robinson. Does anyone wish to say anything relating to this matter? Yes, Councillor Robinson.
Yes, through you, Mayor, to the General Manager. I just have one query, and I noted this was the same figure or non-figure at our last meeting under other income, the PPR WS reimbursement of principal loan amount. There's no, under year-to-date actual zero, year-to-date budget zero, and yet our budget for the 21-22 financial year is $102,609. So I'm just wondering if TASAL are going to come forth with the money, obviously we've budgeted for before the end of the financial year.
I presume that would be the case, Councillor Robinson, this may well be a timing issue, but these reports are to the 30th of April, so we have got until the 30th of June for that money to come through, and that will be reported in the next agenda after the end of financial year.
Further to that, though, under year-to-date budget, it still says zero, so I'm just asking that question.
All right.
Well.
I don't know, may just refer to the Director of Corporate and Development.
Through you, is it working? Hello, through you, Mr. Mayor. You're right, it is timing. It's to happen towards the end of the year. That's the scheduled date. That's why there's nothing in year-to-date budget.
Okay.
So I can provide to you information about that timing date.
Yep, that would be good. Thank you.
Any other matters? Yes, Councillor Churchill.
If I may just make a couple of comments. We're 2 months away from the end of the financial year in this report, and it's good to see that our financial position is tracking according to budget. If we just note that the trading income is up 13%, the operating costs are down 6%, and the profit and loss, good indicators that I think we're working within the budget that we planned over a year ago. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? That being the case, I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise their hand. Against? I declare the matter carried unanimously. Section 5, Section 24 committees. There are no Section 4 committee reports. Section 7 on page 55, information reports. There's one from Director Works, Peter Porch, and it's got extensive. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll move. when I find it.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Woods. Is there a second? Oh, you better,
I'll move that council notes the information.
is there a second? Councillor Brennan. Is there any discussion on the matter?
Yes.
Yes,
If I
please go
may.
ahead, Deputy Mayor Woods.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Porch, just wondering how the rivulet at Orford held up over the last big rain that we had just recently. That we're at the new bridge, you know, that behind Strawberry Hills Court.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
I don't think the microphone's
I don't think
working at
it's
the
either.
moment.
I think it is.
Oh, yes.
The bridge, certainly the new bridge area held up very well. There didn't appear to be any major erosion associated with that. We've noticed from the last major rainfall that there could probably be a little bit of grooming of the water flow through there, and we placed some large stone there at the entry to the bridge to assist with the water direction, to stop the eddying effect. And we think that that's been productive. We'll keep an eye on that and just see that that continues. We do expect to continue to see stone deposited at the bridge, and we did a clean out of that recently as well. So that will just be an ongoing arrangement as it is with many of our other bridges, where you get that deposit of stone and the reduction in the space under the bridge. So we're removing that, but that didn't seem to be badly affected from the recent rain.
If I could-
Yes, please go ahead,
Can
Deputy
I
Mayor.
ask if further down the rivulet, like where there are issues with regards to flooding areas, was that okay?
We think that there may have been some additional erosion, not a lot, but some, and each rainfall makes it worse, obviously, but some additional erosion at the location of the Tas water main, and I didn't see them myself, but I understand there may have been some work that they carried out there to do some repair on that. So there's a section basically unsupported now by the riverbank.
Thank you.
Can I ask a query, Mr. Porch? That's not council property, is it? That's owned by State Ground Parks and Wildlife administering it?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
And I can say I did see Taswater doing some works there. Yes, General Manager, please.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to commend Peter and his team for their diligence and proactiveness over the last bout of rain. I'm talking about end of April, early May. I had a call from the media and asking me questions around what was happening on the ground. I think it was around about the 4th or the 5th of May, and when the heaviest rain occurred here. And I phoned Peter, and he'd been up since 5 o'clock that morning. He was actually down at the Orford Rivulet amongst a whole lot of other sites, checking things out in the dark. And I just I'd like to thank him, and also our supervisor, Cleve Smith, who attended a residence flooding issue up in Bicheno around the same time at 11:30 at night. Cleve was out, Mr. Smith was out at that particular property. So I think it's a privilege to be able to work with the team that are diligent, that without question or being asked, get up of their own accord and are proactive in getting on the front foot when at known trouble spots in our municipality. It's great to have these sorts of people working for us.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, General Manager. We all concur with that. I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise their hands. Against, I declare the motion carried unanimously. Now, item 8, officers' report requiring a decision. 8.1, fees and charges. Can I have a motion, please? Yes, Councillor Churchill.
I move that council receive and adopt the fees and charges register in attachment 1 to this report for the 2022-2023 financial year.
Yes, councillor Robinson. You're seconding?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Churchill, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Most of our fees and charges have increased. I believe that the fees and charges that are in this report have been done with a lot of thought and consideration. And I think they are reasonable within the current financial situation that we're facing, and remembering that in the background here we have a CPI currently at 5.8%, I believe. So that any increase, effective increase, needs to be over 5.8%. Thank you.
Does anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Arnold.
No, I don't necessarily want to speak against the motion. I want to make a statement about the motion.
Yes, please
About
make
the
it.
matter. So I was inclined not to support this motion, as I do not support the fees and charges for the marina because of the lack of procedure to determine those charges. It doesn't necessarily follow, though, that I don't support other fees and charges as listed. So I was placed in a somewhat difficult position, as it means that I would not have been able to support the matter in total. We have a Marine Infrastructure Committee who are charged with the responsibility of providing council with recommendations for fees and charges for the use of the facility. Those recommendations are to be made no later than the 1st of April of each year, so that council may consider the recommendations during budget discussions. I agree that there is no guarantee that council will adopt the recommended fees as is written in the terms of reference, but at least this sector of the community would have had the opportunity to consult on the matter. I learned over the weekend that meetings of the Marine Infrastructure Committee keep being postponed. And whilst I acknowledge that there were very few meetings of any Section 24 committee during the dreaded COVID era, I believe that there has been sufficient time to consult with the Marine Infrastructure Committee on this matter prior to setting the fees and charges today. To keep faith with our community during these trying times, I believe it is imperative that we follow long-established consultation processes. It is a pity it has not happened with this sector of the community in these discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Arnold. Does anyone wish to speak in favour of the motion? Councillor
I'd just like to
Simons.
thank Councillor Arnold because she probably just said what I was going to say, so I won't repeat what she's spoken, but I agree totally about the fees. But I do support the fact that we need to be putting our fees up in line with the inflation and the CPI figures that we're getting at the moment, but I don't agree with going further than that.
Councillor Simons, thank you very much. Does anyone wish to speak in favour of the motion?
Excuse
Yes,
me,
Councillor
Mayor.
Rooney.
I'm not sure whether it's in favour of the motion or
Well,
against.
please
it,
speak
but-
anyhow. We'll soon find out.
But one of the, I'm a member of the Marine Infrastructure Committee, as is Councillor Robinson. I am aware that the meetings have been suspended and put off several times for various reasons, not just COVID, but definitely that was a major factor. The other factor was that there was no issues that were pressing enough to force a meeting. I understand that there might be some concern in relation to the way that procedure goes. However, I think the problem does not lie with this council. It lies with the committee itself, in that they haven't complied with their requirement to provide this council with fees structures that they prefer for council to consider by the end of April each year. That may be for various reasons, but I understand that the general consensus of this council is that we look at the suggested figures, which are substantially higher than some others, but of the fee increases, but they do bring this marine situation into line with what is probably a reasonable standard. That's not to say that I disagree with any comments. It's just a matter of there are extenuating circumstances, and I'm willing to, as a councillor, put my hand up and say, even though the committee has not provided us with a recommendation, that this recommendation is a worthy one.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brandy. Does anyone else wish to make any comment? Well, I wish to make a very brief comment that the long-term financial plan has been around for many months for us all to see, both council members and members of the general public. The workshop agendas for the 10th of May and the 17th of May were given to all councillors when the question of fees and charges were specifically raised. At those workshops, on those dates, the fees were discussed generally, both the marine infrastructure and the other. Senior council officers were available for many weeks to discuss these matters with any council that should have decided to discuss the matter with them. And I am aware of at least one occasion where they did, councillors apart from me. Now, Section 24 committee, and that's what the Marine Infrastructure Committee is, they don't bind the council to act in any way, and there has been no Section 24 committee report to council, as Councillor Arnold quite rightly said. The terms of reference of the Marine Infrastructure Committee on item 4D says that one of the functions was to provide recommendations for the use of the facility, recommendations for fees and charges, and this should be made by no later than 1st April each year. We haven't had any recommendation, we haven't had a discussion, and thus, despite the concerns about procedure, the matter is, I think, properly before council. That being said, I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise their hand. Against? Councillor Simons voted against. All the other councillors voted in favour. Board Secretary, Ms. Murray, would you please note that? I declare the motion passed. Next item is 8.2 on page 63, and that's community grant, community small grant application, Swansea Chamber of Commerce. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Browning.
I move that council approves an application for small grant funding of $1,000 to the Swansea Chamber of Commerce to assist in the delivery of the Paint the Town Red Cocktail Party 2022.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Churchill. Is there any discussion? Yes, please, Councillor Arnold.
Thank you. I no problem at all with supporting the request, as it certainly seems to fit within our strategic plan and in terms of providing support for the arts, cultural events and programs. But I do question the budget presented. There's been no mention that this is a ticketed event at $50 per ticket for an estimated 80 to 100 people. Even if we take the lower end of the scale, 80 at $50, it is an income of $4,000. And the total project expenses are listed at $2,786. I will support the motion for the Township of Swansea, but going forward, I feel there needs to be closer assessment of applications before they're presented to council.
Councillor Arnold, thank you very much. Does anyone wish, Councillor Breeney?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I concur with what Councillor Arnold has just mentioned. I'm in support of supporting this motion. There's no doubt about that. This is a worthwhile issue that I think has occurred once or twice before in Swansea, certainly last year. But I think we need to be very aware of the budget presentations that are given to us in these issues, and we need to have some clear guidance as to whether or not there is a cohort of functions that fall under the heading of being eligible for small community grants or event community or community event grants. This issue has been raised before. And this is, it's an initiative, it's a one-off initiative as far as I'm aware so far, because of the way that the Chamber of Commerce has started to really start to tick over and get moving along with this sort of proposal. But we need to be aware of the fact that when you have ticketed events, people expect to be paying their money for the function and not necessarily paying it also out of their rates.
Thank you very much. Does Councillor Breen, does anyone else wish to make any comment? Yes, Councillor Churchill.
Yes, Mayor, if I can just say, I agree with everything that's been discussed here. I think there's been some very good points made about process here, and perhaps we do need to tighten those processes up a bit. However, the Swansea Chamber of Commerce has just gone through a lot of change, and it's now starting to really do some things to help that community. And I do support offering them this money on this occasion. This is the first year, I think, of actually having this event as part of that whole, what do we call it, red town red process or program. And it's good to see these sort of events happening, and I'm totally in support of the event. And perhaps we can get improved processes in the future.
Manager, if you could take note of the opinions expressed by councillors. Does anyone wish to make any further comment? All those in favour of the motion, please raise their right hand. Against? I declare carried, even though Councillor Brandy raised his left hand. Left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing.
Oh, yes, it does.
And now the next item is Little Penguins Community Group, item 8.3. And it's noted that Councillor Simons has left the room. Can I have a motion, please? Yes, Councillor Arnold.
Council approve the application for small grant funding of $1,000 to the Little Penguins Community Group for refurbishment of the Little Penguin Childcare Centre and surrounding garden area in Vision O.
Councillor Robinson, I assume seconding. Do you wish to speak to the matter, Councillor Arnold?
No, thank you, other than to say that this one does have a quotation that comes that details the income that they actually have or are able to put into the project. So I'm happy to support it.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise their right hand. Against? I declare the motion carried unanimously by all those in the room. Could someone please call in Councillor Simon? Councillor Simons, item 8.3 was carried without any dissenting vote. Item 8.4, consultation on proposed Esplanade West Tribunal one-way section. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Arnold.
Thank you. I'll move that. One, council resolved to commence a public consultation process to determine the acceptability of making Esplanade West from Melbourne Street to the RSL car park into a one-way street. And two, note a further report to be provided to the July council meeting summarising the community and stakeholder feedback and providing a recommendation on future action for council's consideration.
Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Churchill. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion?
Look, if I may, Mayor, the only thing I would say is I think there's certainly some value in actually going to public consultation on this. I think one way will have significant benefit. It's a fairly narrow area. Will have significant benefit for people entering and exiting the current independent living units that we have in that area. So I fully support the public consultation process in this case.
Does anyone wish to speak against the motion? I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise their right hand. Yes, I declare the motion carried unanimously. Item 8.5, Swansea Street upgrade. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Churchill.
I move that council adopt the design for the Swansea Main Street paving project for tendering purposes and seek a further report from officers at the close of tenders with a view to proceeding to contract with the preferred tenderer.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Bruni. Any discussion? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Councillor Churchill, you wish to speak to your motion?
I just wanted to say that I think that under the first couple of paragraphs of the officers' comments there, they point out quite clearly that this has already had quite extensive community consultation and that there's been a lot of information available on this project for a long time. So it's good to be getting to this point now where hopefully we can move forward and get this happening.
Councillor Arnold, you wish to say something?
I acknowledge that there has been significant consultation on this matter, but I have to agree with a recent correspondent to council who suggested a look out on top of the current toilet block is probably not in the best interest of all users. I'm not sure that if I need to use that particular facility, I need an audience to watch me going into the facility. So I just.
It's not Paris, I understand.
Yes. Could this be, if it could be revisited?
Yes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor,
I'll let
yes, we note those comments and even our consultant said, yeah, that's probably worthwhile doing. What it doesn't need to hold up the process in terms of going to tender, it's a small amendment which we can do, which we can look at through that process and have resolved before before construction.
Thank you.
If I may, Mayor, to Mr. Porch, I'm not suggesting in any way, shape or form that we hold up any of the process, just that I think that needs to be revisited.
Thank you very much for that. Does anyone else wish to say anything? Oh, Deputy Mayor Woods.
As a little bit more, adding in a little bit more to what Councillor Arnold has said, some time ago, there was a proposal to put a map on the outside of the toilet block, one of the toilet blocks there by that group was Chamber, thank you for the clarification. And that was knocked on the head too, because you don't particularly want to be having, won't go into detail, but yeah, so they're not soundproof.
Yes, Councillor Arnold, Browning, there's no need to repeat it.
But I thank Mr. Porch for taking those suggestions on and not holding up the process any longer.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Wood. Is there any other suggestion or comment from anyone?
I just through you, Mr. Mayor, I
Yes,
just don't want to make light of the community consultation and feedback that we have had. It's been quite valid, and as Mr. Porcher just pointed out, particular feedback around the view top on the top of the block is quite valid. So it's good to be able. It's not something that we were considering prior. So it's great to see community consultation working the way it has.
Thank you. All those in favour of the motion, please raise the right hand. Against? I declare the motion carried unanimously. Item 8.6, Southern Tasmanian Regional Waste Authority. Can I have a motion, please? Yes, Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move that one, council notes that no submissions were received during the public consultation process undertaken as a component of the establishment of the Southern Tasmanian Regional Waste Authority. 2, the proposed rules of the Southern Tasmanian Regional Waste Authority as notified in accordance with Section 31 of the Local Government Act 1993 be approved. And 3, Council's General Manager be authorised to undertake all necessary actions to enable the establishment of the new joint authority in accordance with the Local Government Act 1993, including providing certification to the Director of Local Government that the rules have been made in accordance with the Act.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold. Is there a seconder? Hi, Councillor Bruni. Is there any discussion on this matter?
As a mover of the motion, if I could just make a statement.
Please.
Thank you. It does appear that due process has been followed quite strictly within this matter, and there's been a high level of procedural fairness established in the public consultation process. Seems little reason to reject the process at this point, and I wish the new Southern Tasmanian Regional Waste Authority every success in the enormous task that they will undertake.
Thank you very much for that. Any other discussion? Yes, Councillor Bruni.
Mayor, I just note, the fact that there were no submissions received during the public consultation process in the component part of establishing the authority seems to indicate one of two things, and you could probably guess whichever one may be irrelevant, is that either it was as they say, a no-brainer and that there were no issues, or you could say that in general, public awareness of the implications and the seriousness of waste management might be lacking. And what that means is that the responsibility for making sure that the Regional Waste Authority is run in a beneficial way to the community, the responsibility for that falls to those who are going to be implementing it. And we would hope that they would be aware that councils will be watching closely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to make any comment or suggestion? If that is the case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise their right hand. Against? I declare the motion carried unanimously. The next item is memorial seat requests. And can I have a motion, please? Councillor Robinson.
That one, council approves the separate requests for a total of 2 memorial bench seats at the grassed area behind the Marina car park, with costs for the installations to be borne by the proposer. Installations are to consist of a bench seat matching those adjacent and a concrete slab base to assist mowing activity. 2, council requests the General Manager to develop a draft policy designed to provide governance associated with public memorials and other sundry installations and objets d'art on council managed land for the consideration of adoption by council.
Is there a second? Councillor Browning, thank you. Councillor Robinson, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Through you, Mayor, only that I think it's a really good thing that we do recognise people that have given a lot to the community, particularly in this case in relation to maritime activities, and I think it's a really worthy cause.
Thank you very much. Yes, Councillor Arnold.
No, Councillor Browning, I think Councillor Browning beat me to it.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Browning. I wasn't paying attention. My apologies.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. The second point I think is really good because we've had issues in the past with other bench seats and it's taken a long time. So to have a process, probably before you were on council, to have a process that makes it easier to get these memorial seats up and running within a reasonable time instead of taking 2 years.
Councillor Arnold.
Thank you. And that's the point that I was going to make, except I'm a little bit different in that I will support the motion in its entirety, but I believe the report is deficient in that it has combined a request for a draft policy with a request for families from families for memorial seats. It is not appropriate, nor is it due process, to include the making of a process within a request of this nature. The debate around the future draft policy could well end up distressing for families concerned. So going forward, it would be far more respectful to have a separate request for a draft policy on any matter, although one would hope that we now have sufficient policies to cover most matters.
Councillor Arnold, thank you very much. I asked the General Manager to take those concerns on board. Does anyone else wish to make a comment?
Can I just make a comment
Yes.
in regards to that? I think memorials in public places can be not only contentious, but obviously they mean a lot to family. And I think council, whilst I accept Councillor Arnold's comments about both recommendations being included in one, this is the first time that I'm aware of, certainly since I've been here, that an issue like this has cropped up and the need to have a process has become apparent. I just need to, through that process, when we do get around to having we have to be mindful, obviously, of the sensitivities around these, but also I want to make council aware that memorials in public places can significantly encumber that land, or that facility.
If I may, Mayor,
Yes,
I
please.
fully appreciate that the General Manager wants to make a comment about this. And this is just exactly the reason why I made the statement I did, that there should not be debate around a policy within this agenda item that we're dealing with for a very sensitive matter for the families concerned,
Well,
because it could be
Councillor,
seen to be
thank you.
respectful and distressing.
I'll ask the General Manager to consider this matter and raise it at a later date.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to say anything? Then I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise their right hand. Against? I declare the motion carried unanimously. Now, the next item is 8.8, Bicheno pump sewerage. I don't know which is correct. Sewage pump station. Sewage pump station. It's not sewage. Okay. Sewage pump station. Can I have a motion, please? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I'll move that council notes the information.
Can I have a second? Councillor Brady. Does anyone wish to make any comment about the minute? Councillor Brady. Sorry.
Councillor Simons.
Councillor Simons.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just through you, I just note the response from Taswater that has put the issue of the sewage running across the foreshore track as almost a designed by engineer type spill. That's not my understanding of what's happening at all. My understanding is that their pipe work's deficient and the pipe work keeps bursting, and it's not designed or engineered to spill under certain conditions. This is a regular event on that path, and I don't really accept their answer.
Yes, Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Mayor. I concur with wholeheartedly with Councillor Simon's comments. And I look forward to the opportunity for them to present an update to us of the issue, because then we can question exactly what's going on there. It seemed to me that, as Councillor Simon mentioned, they were passing the buck.
Well, if anyone else wants to make a comment? Well, I know sewage in Coles Bay is a particularly important and very recently raised matter. It's got some difficulties all around, where a number of people are reported in newspapers as being totally against any form of centralised sewage system, a number being in favour, and there's been a spill allegedly, according to the newspaper, from two major tourist facilities there. And my personal view is that I think we ought to look into this and possibly prepare a memorandum to go to Taswater about this matter, so that they take into account all the factors validly raised here. Yes,
Can I ask
Councillor Deputy Mayor. Wilkes.
you, sorry, Mr Mayor, but to get some clarification, you just spoke about Coles Bay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is Bicheno.
Oh, my apologies. Well,
Um,
yes, well, it's still a matter.
Yeah, so,
Everyone. Yes,
applies.
that's true.
yeah, I mean, Coles Bay has its own
Difficulties.
issues, yes.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank
My apologies for that.
That's
It was digressing. I don't withdraw the comments, but thank you for pointing them out. Councillor Summers.
Perhaps I noticed Taswater asks, would welcome the opportunity to present an update. So perhaps through you, Mr Mayor, the General Manager could follow up on that. Perhaps
Thank
they
you
could
very
make an
much,
update.
Councillor Simon. I'll ask the General Manager to follow up on that so they can present an update.
And if I could add to that
Yes,
request, can I ask it sooner rather than later?
Yes, please. Yes. You mean the year
Well,
after
it's a-
next, not in the
Well, it's
next lifetime?
clearly an issue in
6 o'clock.
Bicheno and all around the place. And they've come up with, they've come with an opportunity to present to us. So let's get it done sooner rather than later, and try and get this issue in this situation sorted out. It's not in this day and age, it's not acceptable.
There will be an opportunity at that workshop when we have Taswater presenting. It will be an opportunity to obviously talk about the wider sewage issue, not just Bicheno.
And I note, which is once again, Deputy Mayor Wood digressing a little, that Taswater General Manager has expressed a view that Taswater does not intend to move through using its own funds for sewage operations at Macquarie Point. So that might make Taswater a little more financially viable, and possibly they could do one or two of the things we'd like them to do. I put the motion. All those in favour? Against? I declare the motion carried unanimously. Now, am I correct now? There are no notices of motion
That is correct, Mr Mayor.
and there are no petitions.
Correct.
There are no questions from councillors
Questions without notice. There's a question.
without notice.
Yeah, on notice rather. There's a question without notice.
Now, question without notice. Yes, please.
I think Councillor Bruni might have beat everybody.
Yes, Councillor Bruni.
Thank you. Do you want to go first? Deputy
Oh,
Mayor?
look, just a quick, if I may.
Yes, please.
Through you to Mr. Porch, and I could have brought, I didn't think I could bring this up in the one-way street thingy. Sorry.
Councillor
I
Woods,
think I know
we're
this.
content that you bring it up now.
Yes, yes. In the one-way street request for consultation, and I'm wondering if, because a number of years ago, there was talk of making the street that runs from the corner of Vickery and Henry Street down that nasty little corner near the marina. There was talk of that becoming a one-way street, or doing consultation to that, because it's not a very pleasing little corner. It's known locally as Keen's Corner. And when you go down the street, you're going one way down into that street and one way into the marina area. So the whole thing is all one way until Charles Street. Have you ever found anything in regards to that conversation or thought back in the day? And is it possible to have a look at that?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, it's certainly possible to look at that. It would be, I mean, this area here is much simpler. There are other complexities associated with that area that potentially could proceed from developments and the like. So we can certainly have a look at it and flag it for future to come back with a recommendation of some form of council at some stage.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Port.
Through you,
Councillor
Mr.
Arnold.
Thank you, Mayor. By way of explanation, discussion was held at the meeting last week of the Natural Resource Management Committee, Council Section 24 Committee, in relation to a media release from the then Deputy Prime Minister Barnaby Joyce that announced an investment of 17.1 million for a distribution network for recycled water and a 100 megalitre storage dam in the Bicheno region. Whilst the outcome of the election may mean this is a moot point now, the NRM committee has a robust interest in water plans for our region and would like to know, one, given the GSBC boundary is just north of the township of Bicheno, is the Bicheno region mentioned in the media release in our municipal area? And two, if so, what, if any, discussions were held with council prior to this announcement? And this is the media release that I'm talking about. As I say, it could well be a moot point now because it was, I think it was an election promise, if you like.
Councillor Arnold, I can let you know that at the meeting yesterday of the Southern Tasmanian Council Authority, there's a schedule of promises made by the various political parties to all the municipalities. And the Glamorgan Spring Bay Council got very few promises made by the current government.
That's it.
I've got the schedule. I could table it if you should so desire.
No, that's fine, Mayor. It's the NRM committee, because of their interest in water, was just interested in the fact that about this Bicheno region, because my thoughts are that it might be the Bicheno end of our neighbouring council.
Well, I will ask the General Manager to see if he can respond in writing to your request.
Okay.
Is that in order, General Manager?
Yep, through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't normally pay a lot of attention to Mr. Joyce's comments, but I will follow up.
Well, he did have status at the time.
Yes, absolutely, at the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is to the General Manager. I was made aware by a member of the community of confrontations which were very unpleasant on the walking track, and it's denoted as a walking track in Bicheno. Along the walking track, there are several signs which show a red circle with a cross through it and a bicycle rider being crossed. In other words, it indicates to a certain extent that it is not a bicycle track. On numerous occasions, and I mean on numerous occasions, on a very slim, in some places not very wide track, walkers have been confronted by bike riders from senior through to kids. And when the walkers have made a comment to the riders that you've ignored the bicycle signs and this is a walking track, could you please move? They have been, in some cases, abused with foul language. I'm told that a response from one of the riders was the signs are just a sign and there's no indication of the authority for that sign. In other words, it doesn't have council's logo. It doesn't have a notification that it is in order, by order of the General Manager or whatever. The question I have is, are those signs in accordance with, I would say, protocols, whatever they may be? And the second part of the question is, if that track is a walking only track, one of the comments that was made, and probably subject to verification by one of the bike riders, was that they have contacted council staff and council staff told them to ignore them. Now, I would tend to believe that that is not the case. However, that was a statement that was made and a claim and an allegation. And I would hope that we may be able to ensure that in future bike riders, if you could, take any action that you could in relation to making sure that that track is properly noted, properly signed and allocated to who should be using it.
Thank you, Councillor Brennan. I'll ask the General Manager to consider your question because the response might require a little bit of investigation. Number of issues come to mind. Do we own the land upon which the track is? And were the signs put up by means of a delegated authority or some issue directly from council, and a number of matters. They're very important matters, bearing in mind the age of our community. We don't want elderly people run over by very strong bike riders. Thank you very much for that question. Are there any other questions without notice? Now, there have been where are we? We have to move into oh yes, there's a response to previous questions without notice from Deputy Mayor Woods. There's a response from the General Manager. They're in the agenda and they're available for all to see. That's item 11.3. And I don't propose to make any further comment about them. Yes, please. Deputy
I
Mayor
just
Woods.
would like to say, acknowledge and thank the General Manager for the response because it makes it clear as to what has taken place, and I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Wood. Once again, very nice to hear comments in favour of the General Manager. In accord with
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, what do you mean by that?
Are they few and far
They
between?
they come thick and fast, and people get used to it so often. It's nice for specific efforts to be made,
Thank you,
to be
Deputy.
brought to everyone's attention on the YouTube.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Now, in accordance with the 5, we're going to move into closed session. I seek a motion. Item 12, I mean. I seek a motion. Oh, Councillor Bruni.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the council moves into closed session at 3:11 p.m.
Seconded. Right, Councillor Browning. All those in favour, please raise their right hand. Against? I declare it carried. So we've moved into closed session.
We have a short break.
Yes, of course.
To get organised.
I'll ask that the matter be, there'll be a